A mega project is a loud and memorable term, and when you hear it, what's the first country that comes to mind? Probably China, Saudi Arabia, or the United States. However, for Central Asian states, since 2012, there's only been one country linked to a mega project, Afghanistan. It's hard to imagine Afghanistan and a mega project in the same sentence, given the country's prolonged crisis with no clear resolution in sight. Yet, there is indeed a mega project underway, and it's no coincidence that it has been on the minds of high-ranking officials in Afghanistan's neighboring countries. Afghanistan is building an artificial river that could deprive other nations of a crucial resource, water. The idea of such a mega project began circulating in the minds of Afghans back in the mid-20th century, initiated by Mohammed D. Khan, known as a progressive leader focused on improving Afghanistan's situation. He spearheaded the project to divert water from the Amu Darya River. This river, stretching 1,490 miles with a watershed of 206,000 square miles and an average annual water discharge of 25 trillion gallons, is one of Central Asia's most significant water sources. Only the Syr Darya, located to the north, can rival the Amu Darya in terms of size and importance. The river is vital for four countries: Tajikistan, where it originates, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, where it ends, though it no longer reaches the Aral Sea. The Afghan water diversion project will also impact this nearly dried-out reservoir, a point we will return to later. The Amu Darya is crucial not just for drinking water but also for agriculture, which is a major part of the economies of these nations. Any changes to the river's flow are met with strong reactions from all affected countries. Initially, it was a relief for these nations that Afghanistan's plans for an artificial river remained in the conceptual stage. However, in March 2022, Afghan officials announced that construction of the canal had begun. By January 2023, photos surfaced showing significant progress, reminiscent of D. Khan's vision from the last century. The project, named the Kosher Canal, is now in full swing. The first stage of construction, captured in those photos, involved laying the route from the Amu Darya to the Juba area in Bar province. The Afghans completed this phase in 18 months, faster than the planned 24 months, resulting in a 67-mile-long canal. The cost of this phase was 8.2 billion Afghanis, approximately $94 million, funded entirely from domestic revenue without international aid. While $94 million represents about 8% of Afghanistan's domestic revenue from the first 8 months of 2022, the canal is expected to bring in $500 million annually once operational. The second phase, which began in the Juba area of Bar and extends to the Anko district of Faya province, is nearly complete, with 81% of this section done as of December 2024. Overall, the project is 61% complete, with 10 miles of the canal already built in less than 3 years. The speed of construction is remarkable, especially considering the extensive surveying, soil studies, and additional infrastructure like bridges and underground irrigation pipelines being developed. Thousands of trees are being planted to stabilize the soil and prevent erosion, and up to 35 million cubic feet of soil are removed daily. The scale of the effort becomes clear when you consider the resources dedicated to the project: over 200 subcontractors, about 5,500 workers, and 3,300 pieces of construction equipment operating around the clock. The total length of the canal will be 177 miles, with Afghanistan investing $684 million, a significant sum for a country where $94 million represents 8% of domestic income. However, the limited resources have already led to challenges. In early 2023, satellite images revealed a breach in the canal, spilling 26 billion gallons of water into the surrounding sand. This incident highlighted a major flaw: the canal was being built without concrete lining, a compromise due to limited resources and time constraints. Workers patched the breach and continued construction, as delays were not an option. Once completed, The Kosher Canal could solve many of Afghanistan's problems, but it will also create serious issues for neighboring countries. The Amu Darya is a lifeline for the nations that depend on it, and any interference with its flow will have significant consequences. The canal is a prime example of such interference. During Soviet times, water shares from the Amu Darya were allocated through Protocol 566. In 1987, Uzbekistan received 48.2%, 7.8 trillion gallons annually, Tajikistan 15.4%, 2.5 trillion gallons, Turkmenistan 35.8%, 5.8 trillion gallons, and Kazakhstan 6%, 0.1 trillion gallons. Afghanistan, not part of the USSR, was excluded from these agreements and still lacks an official water allocation today. The former Soviet republics built their irrigation systems based on these allocations, while Afghanistan took water as needed without significant infrastructure. Now, with the Kosher Canal, Afghanistan plans to divert 2.6 trillion gallons of water annually from the Amu Darya, a move that has surprised and alarmed its neighbors. This diversion could be disastrous for Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, both downstream from the canal. Studies suggest the canal could reduce their combined water share from 80% to 65%, severely impacting their agriculture-dependent economies. Turkmenistan, for instance, relies heavily on water for cotton and wheat production, which account for 10% of its GDP. Uzbekistan, the world's sixth-largest cotton producer in 2021, would also suffer greatly. Cotton cultivation covers 2.4 million acres in Uzbekistan, producing over 1 million tons annually. Reduced water flow would lead to lower cotton yields, decreased export revenue, and a cascade of economic consequences. Nearly half of Uzbekistan's workforce is employed in agriculture, and the sector supports 40% of the population directly or indirectly. The canal's impact extends beyond agriculture. The Aral Sea, once fed by the Amu Darya, has nearly dried up due to excessive water extraction by all the countries sharing the river. The Kosher Canal will exacerbate the situation, making it nearly impossible to restore the Aral Sea ecosystem. The disappearance of the Amu Darya sturgeon and other fish species is likely, and the Aralam Desert, formed from the dried-up sea, will continue to expand. This desert, covering over 14,600 square miles, is a source of wind erosion, carrying toxic salts and dust from agricultural runoff over vast distances, affecting regions as far as Antarctica, Greenland, Norway, and Belarus. Despite the challenges, Afghanistan is acting in its own interests. The country faces severe water shortages, with only 42% of the population having access to water and just 27% of rural areas having sanitation. The northern provinces, where agriculture is possible, suffer from irregular rainfall and droughts. The 2021 drought, the worst in decades, devastated farming, increased unemployment, and forced mass migrations. The Kosher Canal aims to address these issues by irrigating 1.36 million acres of land in the north, potentially transforming the region into a fertile agricultural hub. The canal has already created jobs for thousands during construction and is expected to provide employment for 250,000 people once completed. It will also help combat food shortages and reduce dependence on illegal crops like opium poppies, which were banned in 2022. The canal's completion could mark a new era for Afghanistan, turning arid lands into productive fields and improving the livelihoods of millions. However, the benefits for Afghanistan come at a cost to its neighbors. The diversion of water from the Amu Darya will exacerbate existing water shortages in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, threatening their economies and ecosystems. The Kosher Canal is a double-edged sword, offering hope for Afghanistan while posing significant challenges for the region. As the project progresses, the delicate balance of water resources in Central Asia will be tested, with far-reaching consequences for all involved.